Question number 1, Mr. Peter Biggers.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall be having further meetings later today. This evening I shall attend a state banquet in honour of the President of India.
Mr. Biggers!
The Prime Minister for that reply. Does my right honourable friend agree, in the light of recent shocking acts of violence, that it's a duty of all responsible political leaders not only to express words, but to take all actions open to them, to influence others, to obey the law in every respect?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend. No one is above the law. We all have to obey it. That is what the rule of law is, and I believe that all responsible leaders should encourage every other person to obey the law and take the requisite action to do so.
Mr. Speaker, is it not obvious to anyone who has observed the Prime Minister in recent days that she was rightly horrified by the injuries done to the public, to the police, and to property last Saturday? Is it not equally clear that she can barely conceal her delight at the diversion which the uproar provided? When it comes
Order!
to extremists, Mr. Speaker, the difference is this: I fight them, the Prime Minister needs them.
The right honourable gentleman is talking nonsense on both counts. Yes, I was deeply concerned at the scenes, and deeply concerned that this is not the first time. Deeply concerned that this is not the first time that the police have been injured in upholding the rights of ordinary citizens. During the coal dispute, 1,392 police were injured. At Wapping, 572 police were injured. Perhaps he would remember, before he makes the accusations he does, the scenes outside Grunwick, the Stockport Messenger at Warwick and at Wapping, and the scenes too which we saw last week, which we all condemned.
Speaker, the Prime Minister exposes herself even more. By dredging through all those past acts, she demonstrates exactly the truth of what I said earlier. Those who affect to despise her policies most give the greatest comfort to the Right Honourable Lady, but she derives that comfort and she encourages further uproar.
Nonsense, Mr. Speaker. The right honourable gentleman is trying far too hard and not succeeding. Does he condemn the 28 or 30 members on his own side who seek to break the law? What does he say to people who throughout the years in the Labour Party have not always said it was necessary to obey the law? The honourable gentleman, the member for Kingston on Hull, speaking on rate capping. Rate capping. In the local authorities situation, do you obey the law or not obey the law? We don't have any firm principles in the party, the Labour Party, of how we might deal with the problem.
Mr. Sow! Order! Mr. Sow!
Would my right honourable friend find time today to send a message to Mr. Mugabe congratulating him on his re-election and on the very considerable progress that has been made in Zimbabwe over the last 10 years. But would she also express to Mr. Mugabe the very great concern of a number of people in this country at the prospect of Zimbabwe sliding into a one-party state? And would she urge Mr. Mugabe to re-adopt the principles of the Lancaster House Agreement, which have so honourably served Zimbabwe over the last 10 years?
Mr. Speaker, yes, of course we congratulate President Mugabe. As my honourable friend points out, the principles on which this election were fought were very different from the principles in the Lancaster House Constitutional Agreement. But Mr. Mugabe did uphold it during the appointed time for the entrenched clauses. I agree with my honourable friend, it is very different when you have a one-party state. And obviously those are the things of which he's thinking of. May I also point out that we do help considerably in Zimbabwe with our own armed forces training those of the Zimbabwean armed forces and also the Mozambique armed forces to fight terrorism in that country.
Terry Patchett. Number 2.
Refer the honourable gentleman to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Speaker, in the hope that the lady is better briefed today than she was last Thursday, can she now explain to the House why 42,000 student nurses on low income should be subjected to full rate of poll tax?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman refers to 42,000 student nurses who are in training and receiving a salary. The other student nurses who will go on to Project 2000, which will be most of them very shortly, will receive a considerable bursary. Once they are on a considerable bursary, they will be treated as students and receive a rebate of 80% on the community charge. Once they are receiving a salary during the course of their training, nurses will be treated in exactly the same way as other young people receiving a salary in the course of their training. The honourable member might not like it, but that is in fact the answer.
Tony Speller.
Number 3, sir.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply that I gave some moments ago.
Speller.
Would my right honourable friend agree that because of the unexpected and unplanned size of the community charge across the country, the most logical way to assist everyone of all type and class might be to transfer one large chunk of government-sponsored money, such as education, such as teachers, from the community charge onto the income tax pocket?
Speaker, if we were to do that, we could in fact take on a great deal of extra expenditure on the taxpayer, on teachers' salaries, say, something like about 5 pence extra on income tax, without any guarantee of any reduction at all on the community charge, as some local authorities would in fact increase their expenditure, so we would finish up with much higher income tax and the same height of community charge. We have first to consider how it is possible to restrict the extravagant spending of local authorities.
Ashdown.
The Prime Minister realised that on the crucial question of Britain's full membership of the European monetary system, she now risks the same deadly uncertainty over government policy as cost her a Chancellor of the Exchequer and Britain a plummeting pound and high inflation only a few months ago. Does she really disagree with her own Governor of the Bank of England and her own Chancellor of the Exchequer, both of whom have recently said that the only obstacle which prevents Britain joining the exchange rate mechanism will be removed once high inflation is turned?
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend has made it clear that we stand by the Madrid conditions. He can read those. They have been given in Parliament many, many times. First it is that there is no hindrance on the free movement of capital around the community. There still remain some hindrances. Italy has not removed all of her controls on it, and also that we have clear freedom of movement for financial services. Further, that in fact we carry out stage 1 of the Delors report, and that in fact we get our inflation down about to the middle of the European community. When those conditions are fulfilled, we shall join. Progress has been made, considerable progress, insofar as other members of the community are now following our example, which we completed years ago, of getting rid of many of the controls on movement of capital.
To John Butterfield. Number 4.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Butterfield.
My right honourable friend joined with me in condemning the statement by Mr. Andy Murphy on BBC television when he said that as leader of the punk anarchist group Class War, those who attacked the police on Saturday were justified in doing so, and that they were working class heroes. And would you share my concern that he's apparently employed by the London Borough of Hackney as a finance officer? And doesn't she think that he ought to be dismissed?
Mr. Speaker, I think that most people all decent people in this country would find any such remark utterly repugnant. And all decent people in this country would support the police in their arduous task when they're found in the front line. Anyone who makes a remark such as that should have nothing to do with the democratic process, because he's flatly against it.
Sir Dennis Skinner.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
The Prime Minister aware that in 1979 the cost to the taxpayer of running Downing Street was £1.25 million. Will she also confirm that 10 years later that cost had soared by more than 400% in those 10 years, which is a bigger percentage increase than any local authority in Britain, and that's not including the cost for the gates. Yes.
Well, order. Yes, come on.
Doesn't that mean that the fortress of Madame Ceausescu is a suitable case for poll capping?
I thought the honourable gentleman was better at his mathematics than that. If he looks, in fact, at comparisons, on the same basis, and questions on the same basis, he will find that for
order.
He will find that for running costs, we compare very favourably both with central government and with local authorities. I'm sorry that the honourable gentleman would have preferred Downing Street, which is a historic house, to have been attacked and great damage done to it. It would have cost a lot more than the gates did.
Mr. Atkinson.
Mr. Speaker, returning to the situation in Lithuania and now Estonia, does my right honourable friend agree that the secret protocol of 1939 makes the Baltic states a very special case, and it would be both immoral and illegal to ignore their continued appeals for self-determination and independence? And is not the forthcoming CSCE summit later this year the right and appropriate forum for this matter to be resolved?
Because I've indicated before in this House, this country did never recognise the legal annexation of Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia into the Soviet Union, and therefore we have never had any representation in those states, and we do not recognise it now. The Helsinki Accords recognise those boundaries in fact, but not in law. Yes, two countries have made their views clear in self-determination. I think, nevertheless, it would be wise, very wise indeed, to urge both the politicians in Lithuania and Estonia, as well as those in Moscow, to resolve their differences by dialogue and by discussion, and I'm sure that that is in the interest of both those people and of us.
John Hume Robertson.
The honourable gentleman to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Robertson.
That 1 year's experience of the poll tax in Scotland makes it abundantly clear that no amount of time can heal this running sore of a tax which robs the poor to pay the rich. Does she remember telling me in reply to a question this time last year that I should pay my unwanted and ill-gotten poll tax gains to charity? What is she going to do with the £1,500 that she is going to gain at the expense of the long-suffering people of London?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I now pay community charge in two places, and the honourable member may take it from me that I shall continue to be generous with monies which I have.
Order. Prime Minister.
Like him.
Order. It's unfair to others in the House. The Prime Minister.
Like him. I shall continue to be generous to the charities which I believe in and I support with the monies I have, whether or not they're allowed for tax.